What is up, guys? Brian here, and today on this episode of Biathlon University, we are going to be talking about Phase 3 in the biathlon shooting process. So what is Phase 3? Phase 3 is you've already taken your rifle off, you're already into position, you've already done your fine aiming, and now it's time to start hitting the target. Phase 3 is after you've taken your natural point of aim, after you've taken up the trigger, you are now ready to pull the trigger and actually hit the target. So, what is important in Phase 3? What is important to think about? First thing is taking up that trigger to that 90%. Now, you should already have that trigger at 90% if you're executing a good Phase 2. If not, it's about taking up that trigger 90% and not jerking the trigger. If you only take up the trigger 50% and then you go to take the shot, you're gonna jerk the trigger and you're gonna move your rifle off the target. So, take up that trigger 90%, then it's all about exhale. Now, we talked about breathing a little bit in Phase 2, but this is why that's important. It's about inhale, exhale, making sure you come up straight from 6 o'clock. We talked about this in Phase 2. If you don't come up from 6 o'clock, maybe come up from the side or at an angle, it's not good. Take another breath, come up from 6 o'clock, take the shot, and then, most importantly, follow through. Follow through is a huge part of Phase 3. So many athletes will overlook the follow through because they watch the World Cup and they're like, wow, these athletes are shooting so fast, they're shooting so accurately, like I want to do that, I don't need to follow through. But here's the trick, those athletes on the World Cup are following through. And you know this because when you watch the World Cup, if you just really focus on the athlete's trigger, you can see that their finger doesn't move at all when they take the shot. They can take that shot, the finger doesn't move, and in doing so, they have a really, really small follow through, but they are in fact following through. For new athletes, I always recommend over-exaggerate the follow through after you take the shot. Then, after following through, rebolt, and then start the process all over again. After your finger comes off the bolt, back onto the trigger, take it up that 90%, exhale onto the target. Some athletes might have to take a few breaths, that's okay. Go at your own pace, whatever you need to do to make sure that you are hitting all the check marks in the process, and then get onto that target, exhale, good concentric circles, good aiming, follow through. Notice how I don't even talk about pulling the trigger, it's all about following through. Don't think about pulling the trigger and then following through, think about just following through. Okay, so what are some drills that you can do to execute really good Phase 3? Well, one that I like to do is the pyramid drill. And basically what you do is you get in position, you shoot one shot, out of position. Back into position, 2 shots, out of position. Back into position, 3 shots, and continue up until you get to 5 shots, and then go back down for 3, 2, and 1. Now, yes, you're probably gonna have to move some bullets around to make sure that you have the right amount of bullets in your magazine for when you shoot. Yes, you're probably gonna have to reset your target while you're shooting. That's okay. Basically what this drill does is it really just helps you establish the process. Okay, drill number 2 that I like when it comes to Phase 3 is the follow through drill. Now again, I think that follow through is severely overlooked when it comes to biathlon shooting. And I've seen in my own personal experience, not only as an athlete but also as a coach, that athletes who really focus on follow through in both prone and standing have some of the best shooting percentages of any of my athletes. So, what is the follow through drill? This does require the assistance of a coach or a partner, but basically all you're gonna do is you're gonna get in position, take the shot, and you're gonna keep your finger right there on the trigger until the partner or the coach says rebolt. So, you take up the trigger, shoot, hold it there. Continue looking through the sights, continue looking at the target, and if you're in prone, you can breathe a few times, see if you can keep the target in the aperture, hold it there, and then once your coach says rebolt, finger off the trigger, rebolt, back on the trigger, take the shot, and hold. And some coaches will over-exaggerate it and make you really hold that trigger for 30, 40, maybe even a minute. I like to make sure that the athlete is holding it for about 10 to 15 seconds afterwards. And as a coach, I see all the time athletes who aren't thinking about follow through, they'll take the shot and it's instinct. Just take the shot and immediately rebolt. Now I have something to say about that. My coaching philosophy is I've seen this so often, and I've seen so many athletes neglect the follow through, that I've actually started coaching shooting is not taking up the trigger, shooting, and then rebolting, and that's the cycle. I like to think of shooting as rebolting, taking up the trigger, taking the shot, follow through. And now I'm going to start a new cycle. Rebolt, trigger, shot, follow. And the reason that I have started coaching this, and the reason that I have started implementing this into my practices, is because too many athletes are neglecting the follow through, and they're going straight from trigger squeeze to rebolting, and there's no follow through. So rebolt, take up the trigger, find the target, follow through, and then restart again. Rebolt, trigger, follow through. All right, third drill that I really like to implement into my practices to really enforce good phase 3 is, wait for it, paper shooting. And I know that so many athletes are probably just like, oh, who cares about shooting on paper? Paper's only good for 0. And yes, you're right, paper is good for 0, but paper shooting is extremely underrated. Biathlon is so unique that we have this really cool flip target where when you hit the black, it turns white, and there's that just immediate like, yes, I hit the target. But that's not good all the time. You know, you can hit the target with a split shot on the edge of the prone ring, or you can hit the target dead center 10 ring. That's why shooting on paper is really important. It's really important to shoot on paper so that way you can look through the scope, or at the end of practice you can go down range and you can see where your shots were. You can see how you're doing. You can see that if you come in to shoot once and your shooting is like in the high left of the prone target, and then you come in and shoot again and your shooting is in the low right, something's up. You know, whether it's your position or it's your reading, something is wrong here, and it's got to be fixed so that way you can be as consistent as you possibly can. Another thing that shooting on paper does for us is it alleviates that immediate reaction and that immediate feedback, so we can focus on what we're trying to focus on. I see it all the time as a coach. I say, hey, today I really want you to focus on trigger squeeze, and I want you to start on paper. And the athlete ultimately has great groups. You know, they're shooting this incredible groups. The target is just, you're blowing a hole out of the center of the target, and I'm asking them, what are you focusing on? And they said, trigger, coach. You said focus on trigger, so I'm doing it, and everything is working, and I'm like, man, you're really crushing it. Go ahead, shoot on metal for the rest of the time, and all of a sudden, boom, 3 misses, 4 misses. And I'll say, what happened? What is going on? You were shooting so well on paper, but now you're shooting poorly on metal. What's going on? And they just say, oh, I don't know. Like, I knew that if I didn't hit all these targets, you know, my teammate next to me would think less of me, or if I hit all the targets, I'd feel, you know, validated for all the work that I was doing. And immediately their focus went from what was happening on the mat in the trigger squeeze, because remember, that was the focus of this practice, to what was going to happen down range. And we can't control what is going to happen down range. You could hit a dead center and the target could be broken and it's not going to flip. But what you can control is the trigger squeeze, the sight alignment, the follow through, the stuff on the mat. And I have found, as a coach and as an athlete, the best way to really enforce good procedure and good practice is to just focus on what's going on the mat by shooting paper and just completely getting rid of that black to white and that immediate feedback. Alright guys, well I know that was a short video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned it. Please be sure to subscribe, and there will be more Biathlon content coming out. I actually got something in the works right now that hopefully you guys are going to like. So hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified once that video comes out. In the meantime, hit the like button, comment, start the discussion down below. I'm just trying to get more Biathlon content out here on YouTube. And yeah, if you support that mission, you support that cause, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.